Welcome, everyone. My name is Erin Miles-Cloud. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an attorney at the Civil Rights Court and the Families Project. For those of you who may not be able to see me, I'm a black woman with light brown skin, a black carrot in a bun. I'm wearing a pink headband, black glasses, gold accessories, and a teal shirt. I'm excited to welcome you all to this webinar, Refusing to be Silenced: How Communities Are Organizing to Resist the Family and Criminal Court Systems, sponsored by Emancipate NC, Operation Stop CPS, Life After Release, the Coalition for Families Against Child Separation, and the Injustice Reform Network, Silicon Valley Debug, and the Virginia Family Preservation Project. This webinar will be recorded. This webinar comes at an important moment when courts are becoming more conservative and legal victories from the past are being rolled back.
However, communities and the panelists today are fighting back. Whether it's through court watch, participatory defense, legal support in communities, know your rights. Communities are putting pressure on the legal and judicial systems. They're putting them on notice. Communities are saying that they will not be silenced and we will not accept oppression. It is true, we must change the laws. However, we must always remember that it is the people's power and the power of organizing that soften the ground to sow big legal victories. It is only when we are connected to people and the power within relationships that we truly can have the most sustainable change. One thing is clear: the system, the court systems, the family policing system, the criminal legal systems, it understands this power and enacts one of the most powerful tools it has: the ability to close the door and keep communities out of the system. It doesn't keep people out of the system by not locking them up or not separating their children. It keeps people, communities, everyday people out of the system by closing the door. Because the courtroom, the judges, the prosecutors, even people who say they represent the children, they know that injustice happens in empty courtrooms without community. When we shut out people from the courtrooms and attack organizing, we are actually attacking the possibility of a better and safer future for all people. Secret courtrooms do not keep our children safe. Closed doors protect the government, not the people. Today's panelists will discuss the wins and the real costs of refusing to be silenced. Although there is a First Amendment right for the public to attend criminal proceedings, this does not always exist in family court, where parents, and particularly Black mothers, face some of the harshest punishments: child removal and permanent family separations. The courts do not keep us safe. We keep us safe. And we will hear from our panelists about the possibilities, radical possibilities, of community control, community oversight, and community participation. At the end, we will have time for questions and opportunities to support, in particular, one of our panelists, Amanda Wallace, who is currently facing and has been facing immense pushback for organizing in Durham. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to each of our panelists and our esteemed moderator. First, we have Amanda Wallace. You can turn your camera on, founder and director of Operation Stop CPS. Next, we have Bashir McDaniel, who is a family policing system survivor and also organizes with Operation Stop CPS. So Bashir, you can also turn your camera on. Next, we have Dr. Carmen Johnson, Director of Court Watch and Judicial Accountability at Life After Release. Next, we have Bakura W. Shabazz, founder and president, lipstick aficionado, lip is poppin', of the Coalition for Families Against Child Separation and the Injustice Reform Network, non-attorney legal advocate, family, civil, and criminal policing system survivor. Next, we have Cecilia Chavez, who is the National Participatory Defense Coordinator at Silicon Valley Debug. And our last panelist is my friend, but also my colleague and my comrade, Fallon Speaker, who is the founder of Virginia Family Preservation Project. Also, Lots of y'all are my friends too. And I'm going to kick it over to our esteemed moderator, the executive director of Emancipate NC, Dawn Blagrove.
Thank you so much, Erin, for those quick introductions so we can get into the business of this work. I am very honored and humbled to be able to moderate this incredible panel. And with no further ado, we're going to jump right in because there are lots of things that need to be said that you need to hear from these women so that you can respond to the call of action that's going to come at the end, and we can keep everybody safe with information and with knowledge. So let's jump right in. I want to start with asking this question. What does it look like to organize against these systems? I want to start with Carmen and answer that question. What does it look like? What does it look like for people who have never done it before, without assuming that anybody has any base knowledge? What does it look like to do this work?
Well, the first thing, this would be on the political side of things, is really getting to understand all these judges that are sitting on these panels and to find out what their interests are, because you'll be surprised how many judges are interested in CPS cases, family issues, mothers and children, things of that nature, identifying who they are, and also identifying who in your community, in terms of senators and delegates, to find out whose interest is in family issues, CPS, and things of that nature. So for me, on this end would be to start with that, finding out who the allies are that's on the enemy side of things, I would say.
And Carmen, I just want to emphasize for our viewers, your work is primarily within the criminal justice system and around court watching in criminal court. Is that right?
But we also do court support as well in terms of, families or mothers that have had their children taken away. And we do a lot of promoting that and asking for people in the community to come into the courts to help support this family that is experiencing this injustice with CPS.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Amanda, if you would answer that question next for us, and I'm going to give it to you again. What does it look like to organize against these types of systems? Specifically, I want you to highlight for us, like, how did you get here? Tell us your story. Tell us, how did you get here? How did you become an advocate for children and families?
Yeah, so my journey was a long one in this fight. When I first started, in 2011, I was inside of this system. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought that I was helping families, right? That's what I was being taught inside of this system. And what I'll say is that, the system has always been messed up, even from the inside. But what I was seeing was the powers, these policies and these laws that were being created that were reducing the power of families and increasing the power of the system. And so when I started to speak out when I was inside of the system, my voice became a threat very quickly. I was told to go and get on state committees and to talk about what was happening. And what I quickly saw was that there was no one that was impacted on these committees. Everybody that was on the committees were just system folks that were just talking about what they wanted for the system. And so again, like that it just opened my eyes to see that there was no change on the inside of this system. And also seeing, what for me, we always say the system is the problem, but the people inside of the system is what keeps this system running. And so for me, it became a moral dilemma, right? Like it became a moral dilemma of like, it's me. It is me that is sitting there taking these petitions to the courthouse. It is me that is writing these petitions. And so like, I had to get out. And so in 2021, launching Operation Stop CPS in the beginning was just to simply give families their knowledge, right? How do you stop Child Protective Services, the family police, police from knocking on your door and then coming inside. Because what I saw from the inside is that people just believed what the system said because it had the power to tell you what to do. It had the power to say, well, I have to come and see your children. I have to come inside. But the law is not that. The law is that you have to have a warrant. You have to have, like, there are procedures that protect people, and it was helping people understand, like, that piece of it. And I want to say for Kanice Warren with the Abolitionist Law Center, she said something on a panel recently that this, like, the system is on fire, right? We're saying that the fire is fire. But the problem is we want the system to be on fire, but the reality is there are still people inside that are on fire too. And so the work of Operation Stop CPS quickly moved to trying to get those people that were on like that were in the building out, right? And so that looked like, you know, advocating and organizing around individual stories and shifting the narrative. Because what we quickly saw in North Carolina and around this country is people did not believe people who were coming forward because this system is so protected by this benevolence, right? People believe that if you're impacted by this system, you had to have done something wrong. And so taking my knowledge from the inside, because that's what they don't like. They don't like that I know how to read a petition. I know how to read a court report and, like, actually interpret it and help people understand it. And so that became a problem when we were showing up in court with people who did not believe what this system was feeding to the community. And so when you say, what does organizing look like? It looks like exactly that. Like organizing around the problem, which is people who are impacted by it, and being able to build community around them of people that are going to consistently show up in court and look the judge in the face, who are going to consistently show up in child and family team meetings to push back against what is happening. And, you know, I know we will talk about this later in the webinar, but it comes with a lot of retaliation. You know, the system attacked back hard, really, really hard, especially here in North Carolina, because of the organizing on the ground.
Thank you so much. And I just want to clarify and make sure that it is clear for everyone who is watching that when Amanda says that she was working on the inside, she was part of the system. Amanda was working as a social worker for inside of the system. She was going into people's homes. She was a part of the system, saw what was wrong with it, and realized that she could no longer realize that the moral dilemma that presented itself to her by being a professional and a Black mother with empathy and humanity, that the moral dilemma of doing the work and upholding that white supremacist system was what drove her to advocacy. And I want us to be clear, that is so important. And there are not enough folks on the inside who are willing to risk everything, to risk their livelihood, to put everything on the line, because it's hard as hell when you, excuse my language, y'all, but it's hard as hell when you have to face that real moral dilemma of giving up your income, of giving up your, risking everything, of upending your life and everything that you've worked for in order to do what is right and still do it. That is an incredible thing that we should all be supporting and showing so much love to Amanda for doing, because everybody don't do it and y'all know it. So thank you, Amanda. Next, I want to present the same question to Bakira, and I hesitated because I've been trying to get these names right and I don't want to say them wrong. To Bakira. And Bakira, I want you to talk to us a little bit about having not been on the inside, right? Not like Amanda, but having to learn the system as a person who was abused by the system, who tried to be railroaded by the system, and then the way you responded to that personal attack on you and your family. So welcome again, and thank you so much for your time, and I want to hear everything you got to say.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, I'm formerly incarcerated, and so the level of vulnerability in that by itself should be highlighted. Like, you are not supposed to know the law, assert it, or try to help people with it, being formerly incarcerated. It just doesn't, it's not something you're supposed to do. But anywho, so, I started learning the law very, very early on at like 18 years old, when I first had my first interaction and was not offered a first offender program for a crime that I actually didn't commit. And so I knew then that I had to take action and learn it to protect myself and others in my community, because I saw exactly what the system would and could do. And bringing that information to my communities, I became a community target by police and judges. Even before my exposure to the family policing system, they just do not want us to have this information and definitely don't want you to utilize it against them. So when, my situation came and it was in a totally different state, I did what I always do. I started to learn the laws of that state and of course the administrative code around the Department of Child Unprotective Services, and I used that against them, and very very easily became a target for the system. But advocacy was a safe haven for me in this case, and I believe also that advocacy is what helped save our village child from being consumed by the system that kidnaps our children, sells them off, puts them on the auction block. It is a complete raping of families, and I really need people to resonate with the fact that this is a true rape. Rape isn't just sex. This was a raping of my entire family. It was the child belonged to my daughter. My mother was brought in. I was brought in. Brothers were brought in. Friends were brought in. Grandmothers was being brought in. It was an entire communal raping when they filed these false charges against my daughter. And you have to have the courage and the belief that God is just going to take care of you. And I just led with that, and I never let go on these things that they use, like gag orders and threats of going to jail and things like that. I just told them to bring it on. Let's go. When they issued the gag order, I came off of the case so that I could continue to talk. And I knew at that point they would not have jurisdiction over me. So it was nothing that they could do to me, being that I was not an intervening petitioner on the case anymore. When you're not involved with the case, the judge is not supposed to issue orders upon you, but in the state of Tennessee, they still issued orders, even though the judge didn't have jurisdiction. There was an order that prohibited me from seeing my grandbaby at all. I could not go to my daughter's house. I could not see my mother, and I could not see my grandbaby. Then they issued a that warrants would be coming out for my arrest for intervening with the investigation. And so, I just stood fast and was like, let's go. And I'm going to educate everybody in the jail if you put me in there. And so it just will not stop. We'll just have more and more educated folks. And so what do you want to do? If you do not like what it is that I'm doing, then stop doing what you're doing, because I could do something else. And that's what I always presented them. You don't want to see me, because I surely don't want to see you. So stop doing what you're doing, and I will go away forever. But I always had that one eye peeking and looking, just in case I gotta show back up. But you gotta be and I just want to take the time to acknowledge Amanda, because it is not many people that are going to go to these courts with you. Like both of us had UPL case, unauthorized practice of law, where we're looking at, and Amanda's still having hers. Mine was resolved, but in an actual jail time for doing exactly what the community is supposed to do for one another. Why do you not want me to be my brothers and my sisters' keeper? Why are you criminalizing the humanizing of keeping one another safe? And that tells us everything we need to know about the system. That if you will go so far as to criminalize behavior that keeps community members safe, you got to be operating in direct contradiction to the very thing that you say you want, which is justice.
And so I want to just, as a lawyer who is technically a part of the system, I want to say how important it is to elevate that we keep us safe, and that and that part of the training that we get as lawyers, no matter what side you're on, has to be unfreaking learned, because you are learned to believe and put all of your faith into a system that is designed to oppress us, right? That is designed to oppress our people. Again, it goes back to Amanda, and it's going to be a recurrent thing for us, this moral dilemma, right? What do you do? It's not really a moral dilemma, though. Like for myself as an attorney, the way I came to this work was because we we were representing, Emancipate NC was representing someone who now is a part of our team, who had her children stolen from her and auctioned off to the highest bidder. She will never have, we fought like hell, but we'll never be able to get her babies back. But what we did do was take her story, create a narrative, put it out there, not let anyone forget what the system did to this woman, what they did to these children, what they have done to these families, and what they are doing to Black families. Cecilia, I want to come over to you, because if I understand correctly, your work is really about shifting that narrative and making sure that what goes on behind closed doors in these juvenile systems, in family policing, is brought into the sunshine and has some light shined on it. Because what we know for sure is that when people see shit that's dirty, they know it's dirty. The problem is so much of the family system is hidden because they claim to be protecting children, when really what they're doing is protecting white supremacy and protecting and upholding white supremacist systems. So Cecilia, can you talk to us some about the narrative work that y'all do?
Yes, so we're mainly in Santa Clara County, but we have trained different organizations, around 46 across the country, in what we call participatory defense, which is really teaching communities and families of directly impacted people how to advocate for themselves in the courtroom. And this is all from knowledge that has been kind of brewing in Santa Clara County for the past 20 years. And we started being really involved within the criminal court process, because we saw how insulated this system is and how it's designed to keep family advocacy away. You know, starting with the metal detectors coming right inside. People are intimidated, the language barriers with a lot of our communities that don't understand English. So we developed a process called participatory defense, where family, community, and loved ones are involved in their case to really change that narrative and try to balance those scales of justice within the court process. So what organizing looks like for us is really knowledge. We're building from the cumulative knowledge from the experiences of past families that we've supported to build onto the new, to the families that are coming through our doors. And we've been sharing this model for the past, I want to say the past 10 years, because we believe that if this is a movement, it needs to be common knowledge for everyone, how to dismantle these systems of oppression. We mainly focus on juvenile, criminal, and immigration cases, but we do see the intricacies with CPS cases. We had a number of families who have been threatened to get their children taken away if they don't cooperate with the DA. So it's been a learning curve for us in that sense, but really what our support looks like is, you know, we go with the families to court so that they know that they're not alone. We help them communicate with their defense so that they're able to ask the right questions, because sometimes families might have a lot of questions and they don't really know how to articulate that in a sense that the attorney is going to be able to get those answers to them. Because a lot of the times questions like what's going to happen or what's your strategy are really intimidating for the defense. So we help articulate those questions into something that is less threatening, such as, okay, give me the pros and cons of the case. Like if we take it to trial, this is what we're looking for. If you know, things like that, just helping them kind of articulate their questions. We also help families build what we call social bio packets, which is really a comprehensive mitigation packet that comes from the family. It doesn't come from the system. It doesn't come from the courtroom. It comes from the heart and love of the families that are going through the system. It shows re-entry plans, it shows community support, it shows programming, it shows housing, past traumas. And it's really, like I said earlier, to balance those scales of justice within the court system, because when a judge has a court in front of them, all they're seeing is what the police are seeing, right? They don't see everything else that this individual is involved in. And that's what we also help do. We do it with packets. We also use media. We do social bio videos to really highlight the stories of loved ones so that they could be considered in the court process.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
We appreciate all that you're doing. Fallon, I want to come to you next so you can talk to us about what organizing looks like, what the type of organizing that you're doing looks like, and also any thoughts that came up as you listened to our other comrades talk. So I'm just going to turn it right on over to you, sis.
Thanks, Don. Hello, everyone. So, I've done organizing in different spaces. I'll talk about what it looks like right now, right? In a space where we're trying to organize to abolish CPS, to abolish family policing altogether. I think some of the other spaces that I've been in hasn't necessarily been to abolish, it has been to reform systems. And I think in this space, we're saying that the system can't be reformed. There's been challenges, and this is in Virginia, and our creation of the Virginia Family Preservation Project. And the idea there is that we're not for any sort of rules, statutes, policies, coalitions, or any sort of groups that are pro-family separation at all. And specifically, we're focused on like keeping low income and Black and brown families together. That being said, there has been a number of issues that have come up. And so some things for you guys to look at, and depending on what state you're in, I would speak from Virginia, for example, there's a thing called the Virginia way, the way in which things have been done. And I haven't always lived in Virginia. I lived in New York actually for 6-7 years and worked at the Bronx Defenders. And I would say it was way more progressive than what I experienced when I came to Virginia. But when I came to Virginia, the first thing that I was told about was the Virginia way. And that is that this is how we do things here. I don't care what progressive stuff you learn about in New York, don't bring it here because that's not how we do it. And in fact, it's not just a state rule, it's a locality rule. So each locality has their own way of doing things. And so what I would say is that many of you may be in different jurisdictions where you're under that sort of, this is the way we've always done things, and this is the old boys club or old women's club for child welfare cases generally, right? And so I think that what you have to do first is think about like, are those people going to be included in the way in which you're moving to abolish the system, right? For me, it was a very clear no. I went to a number of these meetings with people and they were all from this reformist state of mind, and that wasn't the state of mind that I was in. And so I didn't give them an invite to the table. Now, what that led to was there being conflict, right? Because they were like, you're not collaborating, you're not being collaborative. In Virginia, this is how we do things. When we want to benefit the family, we bring DSS to the table. And I'm like, DSS can't be a part of this conversation, right? In fact, it was like, if you want funding for this project, you should have DSS be the sponsor of the funding. And it was like, no, that's not what communities want. And so I think you have to be prepared to stand tall and, stand 10 toes down on that. That is not an organization that you're willing to work with, one. But then two, recognize that when you exclude those oppressors from the conversation, they will start bringing up all types of policies and reasons for why you cannot move forward in the way that you are doing it. And they'll say things, for example, I was just in a meeting last week with a parent where I was told that I can be present, but I had to be silent because I'm an attorney and attorneys are not allowed to speak in this meeting. And I kept speaking because they don't tell me what to do. And it's just like, finally they said, well, we just really want to be able to see how she can articulate things. And I said, I didn't think that was the purpose of this meeting. I thought we were supposed to be planning for the family, right? So you frustrate them, right? And you get them to start saying what they really intend and what they really mean. And ultimately I just said, well, we're not participating anymore since you just want to figure out articulation. We're not doing safety planning, so we won't participate anymore, right? But my point is that you have to be prepared for them to throw up all types of firewalls against you. And I know people have talked about unauthorized practice of law. Well, I was hit with that too in Virginia. Immediately after winning a case where we had a lower court judge overturn and DSS overturn on the termination of parental rights. Again, we went against everything the department had been doing. We called them out on it. We called the prior attorney who was representing this client out on it. And then in that same motion to have my bar license taken, it was the prior attorney, it was DSS, it was the GAL, it was the judge on the case, right? All saying that I had been practicing law without a law license. And that, you know, that's what they brought in because they couldn't win in court. And so that made my life a living hell for some years. But I think that what it has taught me is you have to be prepared for that, right? We can no longer just move in this work. And when we're seeking to abolish a system that lives off of its own oppression, if you're seeking to do that, you also have to be prepared for them to come for your livelihood, right?
That's right.
Because we're going for their livelihood. And so I think that actually was a good learning experience for me. And I'm happy to talk through a little later in the presentation with you guys about how you can sort of prepare yourself for when that happens and the things that we need to do in the movement to be prepared for those sort of attacks on people who are seeking to abolish the system.
And so I, as a lawyer, what Fallon is saying speaks so directly to my heart. And at Emancipate NC, we're housed in North Carolina, and we are made up of attorneys and advocates, directly impacted people, folks that are closest to the problem. And we try to attack these problems from every possible angle. But the kind of law that we say we practice at Emancipate NC is guerrilla warfare law. That means we're not playing by your rules. We making up our own rules. We're going to do it the way we want to do it. We're not going to do it quiet. We're not going to do it the way you want us to do it. We're not going to be behind closed doors making decisions. We're not placating to white supremacy, and we're going to call it what it is. And that, to me, is what Fallon just said. That is what she just described. We're not playing by your rules anymore, because let me tell you something for sure. You will never escape oppression playing the game by the white man's rules. Ever, never, ever. You have got to recreate. We have got to and it's something that it's a term that we have used over and over again ad nauseum over the last 4 to 5 years, but we have to reimagine what should happen, right? Reimagine what this system is really about. Another thing that Fallon touched on was that they will use things like, they will demonize us with narratives, right? They will tell us that if we are against family policing, then we really don't care about protecting children. And what we have to say in response to that is that family policing has nothing to do with protecting children and everything to do with protecting the state's financial investment in Black families and oppressing Black families and keeping Black children away from their mothers, because they don't believe we love our babies. They don't believe that we hurt when our babies hurt. They don't believe that we're good mothers or we are capable of being good mothers, despite the fact that historically in America, Black women raised everybody's damn kids. When we was enslaved, we raised everybody's children. We fed everybody's babies from our teats. We kept everybody's kids, but now we can't keep our own. This has nothing to do with keeping children safe and everything to do with upholding white supremacist systems and ideologies. Okay, see, this is why nobody asked me to be a moderator, because I be getting all on my soapbox and talking. I'm gonna stop talking right now, and I'm gonna go to Bashira so she can talk to us about what she is doing and what her work looks like. And Bakar, no, I'm saying it wrong. I see you. I'm gonna come back to you in a minute. Bashira.
Yes. So for myself, I just really want to spread the word out, because being impacted by the family policing system, of course, like, it's traumatized me. And of course, I'm not the only one. Like he was saying, they have a narrative that they want to put out that they're doing good. And a lot of the public believes it. And a big part of it is because, you know, they place gag orders for myself and a lot of other parents out there. When I did bring my support to the courtroom, they immediately placed a gag order and said, no, you can't have your family and friends here. And I'm like, why? You know, I never got that answer. And so it was clear to me that this, like you were saying, they're more about protecting themselves, and their incentive is to, you know, for their financial incentives. And it's almost as if they're aware that if the public does find out the true story, the true narrative, then they're in trouble. And so it's all about just spreading awareness and not stopping and not giving up. I was a pro se litigant, representing myself for a good time in my case, and I was retaliated against a lot just for speaking to lawyers. Like, out in the hallway, I was told, oh, you might not, you know, we're looking to close your case and give your baby back, but we see you're talking to a lawyer, so you want to be careful. So there's a lot of things they do to make sure we keep silence, right? And so we have to not keep silent. We have to keep getting the word out there. And a lot of times I like to compare it to just like, the regular police, the regular cops, we know a lot of those stories where they're shooting innocent people. Innocent people have been getting killed, Black men, Black women. It's the same thing here with the family policing system. They're taking our children for no reason and they're keeping them. And the only issue is a lot of the public does not know as much as they know about these other systems. And so, yeah, that's my ultimate goal, is just to keep getting that word out.
And make no mistake, these systems, very often, y'all, we talk about, regular police and family policing and various other kinds of policing that happens. They are all leaves from the same tree of oppression. And one of the incredible tools of white supremacy, which is white supremacy is the best gaslighter ever, is to make us think that our issues have to be dealt with in silos and that we can't talk about the interconnectivity of all of our issues, and that at the root of it is white supremacy. Bakara, I'm coming back to you, but I know your hand is up to talk to this, but after you finish talking about that, I want you to talk to us a little bit about why organizing should not be criminalized. Why do you think that CPS and family courts are so afraid of Black women advocating for themselves?
So briefly on the unauthorized practice of law, folks, like UPL is so broad. It can be made, especially in the state of Virginia, it can be made to be anything. You can tell somebody, don't stop at the stoplight, and that can be considered legal advice, depending on who you're around. And so, when I was charged with it, they were able to create a narrative that I was attempting to represent a community member because I came to let them know that she was in the hospital suffering from seizures. And there were some other things around it, like ex parte communication between the judge and the prosecutor and things like that we had, had learned. But the sole reason was so that they would not issue another capias on this young lady, that they had already issued one and failed to give her notice that she needed to be in court in the first place. And so, when they knew that I knew, they were like, oh my goodness, we got to take this person out. We can't have community members doing that. I had to shut down my website. Like, it was 1.5 years of basically underground advocacy had to go on, and that hurts the community. And so, the bar did not want to engage with me to really find out what it was that I was doing to even come up with that narrative. So they are able to say you are doing a thing without you being able to respond back and say what it is that you actually were doing. And in the letter that I had wrote, I clearly stated that I was a community advocate and I was not showing up in the capacity of an attorney. But either way, they said what they wanted to say, trying to take me out. But in reference to your question, and so when we go into the courts, be it administrative, civil, criminal, or whatever, because we do all of the work, we don't go asking. We know what the law says, and you need to follow that. Like, I don't need you to humanize me because I don't want you to ask me to do the same for you, because I'm not. Let's be clear. I'm not doing any of those things to try to, show face that these people mean anything to me. We're coming with our ready to go. And like we say, this is war. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, how we show up, look, this is what you're supposed to do. Due process says this. You haven't met the burden of proof. The elements are not there. And we are watching everybody in that courtroom, from the defense attorney, the judge, the prosecution, to the bailiff. When you kidnap a body, when they have not met the elements, that is a kidnapping. That is illegal in the United States of America. And so when we, are educating folks on the law, these are the things that they need to equip themselves. And it's more than just knowing your rights. You got to be able to assert that. And like Fallon said, what are you willing to sacrifice for your liberation? Okay, like, how much does this really mean to you? And I'm ready to lay it down. Like, I already had a conversation with my creator, like, look, you know what I'm saying? Just, if I got to go, this is how I want to do it. And it was the same thing with my grandbaby. I said, if I have to lose my one and only grandbaby, I will not lose her on my knees. And I'm taking a whole lot of more folk out with me if I must lose her. And they did not know what we were doing. I was able to get that baby back in 6 weeks. And this was a brand new baby, 2 months. We were able to get that baby back in 6 weeks. I was going to tear Tennessee off the map. But I also had other folks with me.
And that, y'all, for real, that is our power. Our power is our ability to speak truth to power and say it out loud, say it boldly, and say it unapologetically. One of the ways that we keep us safe is by saying the quiet things very, very loudly. Emancipate NC is one of those kind of organizations that we stay on the news, we stay in the newspaper, we stay on the TV, because we gonna make the media our bitch. And when I say that, what I mean is that we gonna let everybody know what's happening to the place where we change, we guide the narrative. We determine, like I talked about a little bit earlier, Jatoya Potts is one of my comrades that works with us now. She lost both of her children. We keep Toya's story in the news so much that people see her on the street and say, "We're so sorry about your babies." People text us, "Is there anything that we can do to help you get those babies back?" Because nobody knows. And Toya is not an exception. Toya is exactly what happens to everyone in this system. And that is why it is so important that part of what keeps us safe is doing something that seems really scary and saying the truth out loud, real loud, to a lot of different people.
Dawn, another mechanism is putting it out there. So we were willing to put my grandbaby on billboard. So if you were trying to adopt her, you was gonna get so much condemnation because they was gonna know who this baby belonged to. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not playing no games with you. You will not. Nobody's gonna get this baby. Gonna stay in the system, and then you won't stay dealing with me because ain't nobody gonna take her. How about that? Because her face gonna be plastered up everywhere. And those are the type of strategies and things where we gotta raise money from, raise money for, so we can do those things so that there will not be a system outside of the system that takes these babies in. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Nah, girl, I do. I hear you. So one of the other things that I want to talk about is the retaliation that we find against organizers who are doing this work, and how the criminal justice system, the criminal legal system, is used as a weapon to silence advocates in the child and family space. We heard someone, Bakari used the term, I know I'm saying it wrong, but I'm gonna say it real fast so you won't hear me. It's saying the term that we are being raped, that our Black families are being raped. That is such powerful language. And let me be clear, as a criminal defense attorney, rape has nothing to do with sex and everything to do with exerting power over another, making someone or something submissive to your power, to your force. That is the epitome of what family policing does to Black families. And what we got to do is not lay down to be raped. We got to get up, we got to fight, we got to kick, we got to scream, we got to yell, we got to throw shit, whatever we got to do. But raping is exactly the term that needs to be used for this system, because that is exactly what is happening here. And I also want to talk a little bit about that retaliation, and that raping is a part of that retaliation. So I want, Carmen, can you talk to us some about what happens and how you see retaliation against Black women advocates or any kind of advocate in the child and family space? What kind of criminal ramifications, what kind of criminal retaliation are we seeing?
Well, first I want to just let everybody know, under Life After Release, our focus is criminal legal justice system. And some of our wins, for example, is 1,704 years saved off of 56 people who supposedly should have went to jail and did not because of our advocacy. So just to let you know that. And in terms of retaliation, we are seeing retaliation. We have sat in over 6,000 court hearings. And with that, 2 years ago, we, got our Zoom access taken away. And since then, we have been able to stop the retaliation in terms of courtwatch is concerned. But in terms of our community, we're seeing a rise in melanated women that are going to jail. and that's the issue. And so when this does happen, we are able, even though our main focus is not CPS, we are able to assist with mutual aid and things of that nature. But the retaliation we're seeing is in our communities. The rise of melanated women are getting higher. And of course, our women have children. So it's very heart-wrenching that this is happening. And, we need more people to help speak out against this.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you're doing, for the time that you're saving people who for unnecessarily having to sit in cages. That is such important work. And I think we want to really highlight that, again, the criminal justice system and the family protective systems are both are literally fingers on the same hand, right? They are not separate entities. They are not standalone. And the same biases we see in the criminal justice system are not only perpetuated inside of family policing, but they mirror one another. For example, what we know for sure is that so many of the mothers and Black families that end up inside of the family policing system got there because of a referral from school, got there because somebody decided that because their child was truant or late to school every day, that the parent was somehow unfit, right? Because a kid wasn't getting their proper vaccinations, they are somehow unfit. And then they're referred to the criminal system that refers them to these family systems. These white supremacist systems and institutions are all fingers on the same hand of oppression. They're all fingers on the same hand that is designed to put its thumb, its knee on the neck of Black families and to destroy our families and to keep our families apart. And it is imperative that we do not allow them to make us think of these systems as separate. They are all the same. They are all the same, and they all work together, and they all work together to tear up our families.
And this is why it's so important. We have the media on speed dial. We got different publications on speed dial. We hold these judges accountable, these elected officials, when we find out what their narrative is that they ran on and while they was being elected. That's why that's so important. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done, y'all. They are destroying the melanated family, and that's the issue.
So one of the fallacies and one of the myths, right, is that these systems, that family policing is really about protecting children. It's very altruistic, right? It's very much presents itself in the way that it is designed to really care about the children, care about our children more than we care about our children. That's why they have to come in and take them from us. That's why they have to watch us. That's why they have to make sure that our children are being cared for, when in reality, what we know is that they don't care about our kids. This isn't about our kids. It's about controlling, manipulating, and ultimately destroying Black families, because they know the power that lives in the Black family. So to that point, we've been talking in broad generalizations, but I want you all to now give us some real life examples. Talk to us about how the family policing system is more concerned with protecting itself and its secrecy over protecting kids and over transparency. Talk to us about, I'm a big one. I love talking about white supremacy and systems that's racist, blah, blah, blah. And people be like, yeah, but then they don't know what it actually looks like. So I want you all to now take a little bit of time and explain to the folks that are here with us, what does that look like? What does it look like in practice? I'm going to start with Bashira. Oh, I think you're still on mute.
Bashira or
Okay,
Bakira?
Bashira,
Okay.
sorry.
Which one?
Bashira. Here.
Okay.
Look, I'm pointing at your picture on my screen, girl. I'm sorry. Bashira.
Okay. So yeah, what it looks like is pretty much putting you in a place are a parent in a place where you're completely isolated. You know, they want to protect themselves. So going through something so traumatizing, all you want is support. And we use the word kidnap because that's what it is. And I think that allows people to see what the trauma really feels like. So what they'll do is they'll use types of tactics, like we said earlier, retaliation. You know, you have support, you get a gag order. You know, you're talking to a lawyer. Oh, we might not reunify you with your child today now. So it's just a consistent, ongoing story of that. And you're silenced, like they say, you know, to be invisible. So they force you to go through it alone in hopes that maybe if I don't say anything and speak out, I'll get my child back. And so they can keep themselves protected. Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I'm just come on off mute, y'all, and talk to us.
Yeah, I would also just piggyback off of what Bashir was saying in regards to them closing the courtroom. That's one of the biggest things that we're seeing here in North Carolina is that, like, in North Carolina, the family court is supposed to be open, but anytime the community shows up, they will close the court, and they'll say it's because they are trying to protect, you know, the child. But I had a situation just recently where we were able to stay in the courtroom for all of the cases that we weren't there for, right? So they let us stay in the courtroom. We were able to hear information about the child, personal information. But as soon as the case was called that we were there to support, then they wanted to close the courtroom because they didn't want to be transparent and talk about what we really were there to hear, you know. And even a full circle moment for me was in the county that I work for here in North Carolina, the same court that I was able to walk into freely, sit in this courtroom. When I came as an advocate, they closed the court. They put paper over the door so we couldn't even look inside, right, of it. And so this is the level of, like, in regards to transparency, they don't want you to see anything, because if you were in the courtroom to hear, you could see that children were in custody for years because maybe their mom didn't have the resources for daycare and they said it was improper supervision, right? Or you can tell that simply writing a check for some resources for families could end this whole thing very quickly. They don't want that transparency in the courtroom and for the community to be able to see that. Even when it comes to child and family team meetings or family team meetings, if a family, if the department hears that we are working with the family, they will stop allowing families to have meetings over the phone or virtually. They won't allow anybody to come to those meetings. The social workers will stop talking to families on the phone. So again, they do not want any opportunity for anybody to be able to assist or to help this family at all with understanding the process. Because that's the moment, like Fallon said, it's the way it is, right? And the concern that they have is when people understand the way that they operate, because that becomes a problem with their level of being able to put the veil over people's heads or whatever of what's going on. And so, yeah, that's what we are seeing, is just them shutting the door for anybody that might understand what is happening. They just do not want you involved in any type of way.
And so thank you, Amanda, for that. And Cecilia, I'm gonna come right to you, but because I am who I am, I'm sorry, y'all. So we just gonna do this right now. Because there's somebody in the chat that is dropping the kind of stuff that, and some real nasty things in this chat. And let me just be clear, y'all. Again, remember when I told y'all white supremacy is a master gaslighter? This is too powerful of a conversation to allow anybody to derail. So what we are going to do is ignore those foolish comments and keep moving on and speaking truth to power like we've been speaking.
Oh, I was about to come for his whole life.
And not get
derailed. I was about to come for his whole life.
But see, that's what they want, right? Because that is what white supremacy does. That is what white supremacy does. It tries to derail us. But you know what? We smarter and better and bolder than all of that. And we're going to ignore that and keep pushing. So, Cecilia, I saw that you started talking. Come on, sis, go ahead and talk.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, even we've had a situation as we're speaking to real life experiences that we're still dealing with, even after CPS closes the case and finds that the child is well, and there is no harm to the child, the DAs are still prosecuting this woman, this mom, who doctors have all the child that we're supporting, she has she breathes through a machine, and there's a lot of like health complications. There's letters from multiple doctors, multiple specialties. We mapped out this mom's whole week to show how many doctor's appointments she attends, like to really show the character of this one of the mom and how involved she is in the care of her child. And despite all of that, despite CPS closing her case, the DA's office in the criminal lens is still pursuing those charges. Is still pursuing child negligence charges against this mom. So the fight doesn't just stop at CPS. It's also now inside the criminal court process. And speaking about all these different injustice systems, she's also now facing an immigration case. So not only is she now facing criminal charges, she's also facing permanent exile from the country and not being able to be next to her children, for the rest of her life. So there's all these systems that now get involved that you kind of just, as you're following cases, you start learning more and more about these. So I just wanted to share that experience.
Thank you.
I think that's important to highlight too, Dawn, because you can't have multiple cases and they do not run in tandem. You know what I'm saying? They don't, like, different things is necessary in each of them. So you'll have the administrative, which is family policing, civil court, family court, criminal court, and if you have an immigration, then you have that. And some of these courts don't provide you with counsel. You have to represent yourself or figure it out yourself. And we did have a 3-part case. I was able to get the criminal dropped, but imagine, I mean, and then you can be found guilty on the family police and be found not guilty in criminal. Like it's ridiculous how they do it, or found guilty in criminal and not guilty on the family policing side. Is nuts.
Yeah, and we got to move on to next steps because we don't want to just be talking without having some solutions. But I do want to add just a little bit to that, because I say mine because I feel, because Toya is part of our family at this point. So when they took Toya's kids, they took our kids, right? But in Toya's case, even after her criminal charges were dismissed, they still wouldn't give her back her children. We went to the Supreme Court of North Carolina, who issued an order that started off by saying, we have no doubt that Miss Jatoya Potts is a good mother, but she cannot have her children back. Right? Let me just be clear. The stuff that is going on in these systems behind closed doors is insidious and is of the devil in a way that we can't even scratch the surface of on this call. So that's why it's important for us to stop right in this moment and talk about what we gonna do. We don't talk about what it is. Let's talk now, y'all, a little bit about what we gonna do. How we gonna fix it? How are we gonna protect us? How are we gonna keep us safe? So I want to talk to folks who have won this system. I want to go to Fallon, who said that you had you faced, and as an attorney, for God's sakes, unauthorized practice of law. How did you beat that case? Tell us what that looked like. How did you win?
Well, maybe before I go to how I won, I'll just be candid about sort of like some of the realities that had to sit in. So first is that the day we won the TPR trial, the next day a petition was filed. If those unauthorized practice of law things are filed with the bar or the board of bar examiners, then it's supposed to be confidential. The attorneys and the judges in that case shared it with most of the bar in Virginia, the documents. And so it went to, at the time, my manager was the dean of the law school. I was working at the law school, University of Richmond School of Law. And I was a full-time faculty member in the clinical program. And it went to the dean. So I got a call at 11 o'clock at night on Friday saying, hey, what's going on, right? Mainly those came from alums of the university. The immediate thing that happened was I had then spent an entire weekend communicating to people under a prosecutorial lens about what I did do and what I did not do, right? And then from there, I basically was told by the university that I was going to have to go through the employment relations board or whatever it's called. Essentially, they were getting general counsel involved to determine whether this was a violation of my employment. Whatever they alleged in the complaint was a violation of my employment. And so I was at risk for losing my employment, but then also I wasn't licensed in the state of Virginia at the time. I was still pending licensure. Although I was practicing under supervision and barred in the state of New York. So I did, have to do a lot of arguing to the university to pay for an attorney for me. I did get a private counsel that cost about $5,000. And I think that's only because my case was so straightforward, right? It would have been more expensive if that wasn't the case. The attorney was disgusted by the complaints, but we then had to go reach out to people to write letters in support of me. That took about 3 to 4 months of a process. I was pulled from teaching during that period of time. And if you will be put on a probationary period at the law school, because they were concerned about alum and how I looked in the community having this filed against me. Ultimately, the board of bar examiners in Virginia decided, or the bar committee on ethics decided that it was no violation. And in fact, they found that it was completely disgusting that this had been filed in the first place, given all of I had taken all of the steps to practice in Virginia under supervision, and they actually issued a warning to the people who had filed the complaint. That being said, there's nothing you can do to prevent anyone from filing a complaint against you. And that's a lesson that I learned. What I learned out of that was that the best thing I can do is to prepare myself such that if a complaint is filed against me, it does not impact me. Now, while I know in the state of Virginia that there are in many states, there's like a misdemeanor charge that could be brought against you and those sorts of things. I think the best thing that we can do is plan for that to happen. We should have a plan in place that this is likely going to happen. And when this happens, this will be the thing that I do. Right. So if you're not an attorney, then that plan is, how do I address a criminal accusation? How do I address this if a misdemeanor charge is filed? And then if you are a practicing attorney, your question is, or you're seeking to be a practicing attorney, your question is, how do I protect my license if I have one? And if I don't have one and I don't need it, is that okay? Like, does this impact me moving forward? And I'll say, for example, like in my current role, yes, I do need a license to practice law, but in terms of the work that I'm doing with the Virginia Family Preservation Project, no. We're doing organizing work, we're doing policy work. None of that requires a law license. So at this point, I could care less, right? But I think that what it did make me do is realize I needed to shift myself into a position where they couldn't touch me through that system. If the thing that they think they have hanging over me is like the ability to practice law, then I didn't need to give that to them as a carrot to dangle, right? But I think that is something that we can think about, is sort of like the same way we ask our clients, we ask community members to create safety plans. You need a safety plan. You need a plan for when they come for you, because they will come for you because you're going for them. And that's to be expected.
Thank you so much, Fallon, for that. But Kira, can you talk to us about the exact same thing, how you win, but when you are not a lawyer and when you are fighting the same kind of charges, the same kind of allegations to a non-lawyer? What does that look like, and how did you win? You muted, sis. You muted.
First of all, it's going to be different depending on, who you are. I think that I was able to win because I wish I could understand, explain the platform of Virginia. Like, Virginia don't have none of this stuff that all these other states got. Like, we still 16, 19. Let's understand it. So I had white faces. I had the former attorney general and the former director of the ACLU represent me on the case. And basically they went in and said, in my mind, that we won't have her do what it is that she do if y'all, during this this juncture with the complaint, because I had a whole scheme ready for them if y'all drop the charges. And so they just sat on it for a while, for like a year and a half, and then just dismissed it and just said, make sure that you're not representing anyone. But there wasn't any exchange. And, I think it was the white faces that that had shielded me in this instance, because they would have most definitely locked me up. But they had in their mind that I had held myself out to be an attorney, even though I explicitly said that I didn't. They do not want this type of advocacy. It disrupts everything that they are trying to do. And the only thing that they do have to be able to hold it is UPL, because when you're looking at First Amendment, right, which I was holding on to for dear life, I was going to eat the UPL statute up because I have the right. But when you show up in the court, that minimizes that, that right. So I just think that for me, it was white faces and them seeing that I was connected even outside of that. And the fact that they just know that I'm not stopping. Like, you don't tell me what to do.
All right. And with that, when they don't tell us what to do, now I want to move over to talk a little bit about what is it that we can do. They don't tell us what to do, so we should determine what we do. And what we want to talk about in this section is, what are the topics, what are the things, where are the places that folks on this call can show up and support the work that you all are doing, support the retaliations that's coming against y'all, support you in any way that you need supporting. So Amanda, I'm going to start with you. Talk to us about what you need, babe.
Well, my hearing starts on June 3rd here in Raleigh, North Carolina. It'll be at the Justice Center. Jury selection starts on June 3rd. And realistically, when we're talking about this system and the retaliation, I remember when I turned myself in and looking at that indictment and seeing that the district attorney that's prosecuting me is the same person that I work with, right? And so like, and having to say, well, she's doing her job, right? She's doing her job. And so when we say that, what do we have to do? We have to do exactly what we're doing, which is organizing. And to Fallon's point, when she said, like, we got to be ready. We got to be ready for when they come. I'll tell you, in doing this work, I knew from history that they were going to come. But but when I tell you, like, being able to have community around you in doing this work, like, I always want to shout out Moving for Family Power, right? Because as soon as they came, I was on the phone and Emancipate NC of being able to get an attorney out there, like, to fight back. But that's exactly what we have to do in this moment. And so I believe we have the links in regards to the support letter. We're asking people to join that support letter and let them know that we see what is going on. There is no narrative that they are going to be able to paint that is going to be able to erase what we already know, right? We know that this has nothing to do with the charge, right? They say that I used the government computer while I was employed by the government, something that I had the right to do, right? But if that was the case, I stopped working. Again, remember, I stopped working in 2021. 2023 is when this indictment came, right? So we just want to make sure that this is very well known. And so please sign the support letter. Again, attend court in person if you can come, and then donate to pack the court. If you're not able to come down, you can send resources to help other people get down here as well. And then look, this is supposed to be June 3rd and June 10th is double booked. And so being able to make sure that, like, in regards to my family, being able to not have to think about having to eat, to make sure that we are able to eat during this time is something that, like, I just want to acknowledge, because the Durham community definitely rallied around when these charges came, and they had that on lock and just making sure that my family was good. And so again, I just want to personally thank each and every person for being on here and rallying around, because I know in my heart and in my ancestors have told me that this is already won. It is won because we are all here today, and we got this. Like, it's nothing that they're going to be able to do to take this down. We're going to abolish this system because we, the people, have the power.
Okay, Amanda just dropped the mic on us. But I also wanted to, in this section, before we go to question and answer, also uplift that we need to be aware that there are First Amendment rights that we are fighting for in family court. We want our courts to be open. I know that in that Emancipate NC, Elizabeth Simpson has been fighting with a with a judge in Durham who does family court that is that refuses to open up court and then refused to give us transcripts so that we could bring litigation about the reasons why she was closing court. Then when she did finally give us some orders about how she was closing court, they all said the exact same damn thing. She changed the kid's name and maybe one word. They were all just carbon copies. So keeping these courtrooms open, shining light inside of these courtrooms, making sure that families have their First Amendment right protected, that they have the right to have someone there to help them, to support them, to stand with them, to help them fortify their needs when they're weak. That is what also we all need to be doing. Whatever steps you can take in your local communities to make sure that we can be inside of those courtrooms, that we can change policies to make sure that we can get inside of those closed courtrooms. And if we can't get inside, that we hold those judges accountable in upcoming elections who are keeping us out, because they have the power to do that. They have the power, just like they have the power to close those courts, they have the power to open. So at this point, we are going to move on to question and answers. And I have not been able to keep up with that in the chat or anywhere else. So I'm going to ask for some help.
We do have some questions. We also have a few people who have raised their hands. So I'm going to put, this is Erin speaking. One question comes from Amanda Morales, who asks, if anyone is receiving funds from, I think this means Child Protective Services, what do you do? How do you kind of navigate having money from the system doing this work? And if Amada, if I mess up your question, let me know.
I don't know about anybody else, but Emancipate NC is most certainly not getting any money from the system. And we honestly, you know, I'm switching over to my ED hat for a little while. We are, you know, there has been federal and in North Carolina state legislation recently passed that that says if you take state money, if you take federal money, that you open up yourselves and that you allow the state and the federal government to have access to your financial books, what you do and how you do it in a way that you do not have to expose yourself to if you don't take those federal or state funds. That is one of the reasons Emancipate does not. I'm not saying that anybody else shouldn't, but I am saying that in this time, in this space, in American history, we need to be very, very careful about where we get money from, because baby, all money ain't good money. So everybody else want to answer, speak directly to this question about funding.
I didn't understand the question.
Okay, I think what she's asking is if any of us get money.
Oh, if
any of us are partnering with the family systems and getting money as like, you know, how sometimes they'll say they have folks that they're working with that are community advocates that are working with the system to improve the system.
I think
I cannot partner with
Amada asked to speak. Maybe I messed up her question, so I was going to also let her have an opportunity to ask her question in case I messed it up. You should be able to speak. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll make it quick. My name is Amada Morales. I am from the Welfare Warriors in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've been a court advocate for 14 years. And I do a lot of what you do. If you ever want to get my input about my strategy that I developed in 14 years, I'd be happy to help. But my question is anyone, I'm an unpaid volunteer for 14 years. I wanted to know if anyone on the panel is paid, or if you all are also unpaid volunteers. If you are being paid, what is the source of your payment? More specifically, if you're getting money from any of the government sources, whether it be the federal, the state, or subcontractors of the child, we call the child welfare, we call it over here Child Protective Services.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to let you know is that there was a book written about the activism we're doing in Wisconsin, and I could leave the link in the chat as well. It's available on Amazon, and it does feature me and my activism in the book as well. And it might be helpful and useful to y'all. But if you ever need us at the Welfare Warriors in Wisconsin, we're here to help and collaborate with you.
So Amanda, funny enough, I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm from Milwaukee. My brother actually most of my family still lives there. My brother is Damian Elsie. He works for Alderman Russell Stanford. So let's stay connected. If you need something, if there's something that you need from them, you let me know and I'll do whatever I can to help you make that happen. Because I'm not one of them kind of sisters that don't hold
nice to meet you. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too, babe. Thank you for your work. All right. So now that you understand the question, where do you get the question is, where are we getting money from? How are you funding your work if you're funded and if you're getting paid? I can say that Emancipate NC gets most of its money from private, from donors and from grants to do this kind of work.
I plead the fifth, but it isn't the state and the federal government, I tell you that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know they watching. So
yeah. No.
Is it okay? Because we have like 10 more minutes, Dawn. We have a couple other questions. And one is from Robert Lilly, and the question is, how much of this work, so community resistance, community access to courts, is about narrative change?
I would say a lot of this work is about a narrative shift, and like just trying to change how people perceive the people that are coming forward to tell their story. I think somebody said in the comments, we have to stop saying that children were removed from their families and those types of things. Right? We have to use the language like Bashira said, which is children are being kidnapped from their families, from safe and loving families. And so we have to shift that narrative so that, one, we make it safe for people that are coming forward, and that we also bring the veil down so that this system is not protected by the benevolence that people in society believe.
And I even think, y'all, it's so much less of a narrative shift than introducing an alternative narrative, because there are so many people, unless you have been directly involved with family services, who have no idea what they are doing, who have no idea about the treachery that happens inside of it. We have got to tell our stories, and we have got to create space for those people directly impacted to tell their stories so that we can offer an alternative narrative. We ain't even got to the place of shifting the damn narrative. We just got to get a narrative out there that's not the one that they have created. And I think the folks on this panel are doing incredible work towards making that happen. Next question.
Oh, really quick, Don, I would say it's not just
sorry,
about,
Fallon.
Yeah, I think it's about introducing new language, but I think it's about also correcting the language that they're using. So some examples would be like, I'm in meetings, safety planning meetings, and they're like, mom, 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 dad, 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 whoever. It's a show of respect, in my opinion, to refer to them in that way, right? And so I ask that unless they've told you to refer to them like that, you say Miss So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, however they wish to be referred to, the same way you're addressing me. Another thing that comes up often is how they address visitation, right? They call it visitation, and sometimes they use terms like family time or something like that. And I'm like, parents don't visit with their kids, they parent their kids, right? And so like you're using visitation because it makes it easier to say 2 hours every once a month is good, right? But if you're actually referring to it as parenting, then we all know you can't really do that in 2 hours. And so you need more time to be able to do that. So sort of thinking about some of the things that they're using and pushing it back against them to be like, actually, if this is what we're intended to do, the words that we're using don't match up with that.
And I want to add the continuation of poverty, because once a child has been kidnapped, they require those parents, both of them, to pay child support. Like, you take them out of the home and force the parents to pay child support for their children that they were already supporting in the home. And if you're military, it's even worse, because the response from the military is double that of what CPS or family policing system puts on you. So if you have parenting classes, psychological classes, anger management, the military through FAP will place them, and then you'll have to take another set of those classes, and they will also restrict you. My daughter was restricted from being around her child by the federal government. And so, you know, the transient nature of our military is puts them in a very vulnerable position, and the kidnapping of children is so much easier because most military families have been stationed somewhere else where they don't have family and friends at, and so then it's like, oh, you can't get somebody here in 12 hours, the baby's going to foster care, foster prison.
I just want to just put out the importance of, you know, we need more melanated people getting involved with this, and that we can't do this fight alone. And I know that there is like a fear with melanated people. However, if we remember and we reprogram ourselves to understand that there's power in numbers, I think that things would change a little bit more. Should I have not said that? Everything got quiet.
So, that's a great question. I think, Dawn, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was just waiting to see if someone else wanted to respond to that particular question before we moved on to the next one. Erin, did you want to read the next question?
Yes, I do. So I think this might be our last question. Unfortunately, there are so many really great questions coming in, and I encourage people to kind of reach out to each other. We're going to follow up on this panel with more resources. And speaking of resources, are there any trainings through this network to prepare people to do participatory defense within national hubs to move us into a direction of more community responses? So it's a really great action-oriented last step. Also, please note, I'm putting things in the chat for people to look at, but like, what do we do next? How do we learn about this? How do we keep going? What resources already exist? I think I'll put Cecilia, do you want to start us out? Because I know y'all got some stuff, and I know Amanda's got some stuff. I know people got some stuff. So I'll call you out. I'll be like, you know, I'll do it like old school church stuff, like call your name. You're not coming up the front?
Okay. I was gonna put in our website on the chat, participatory.defense.org. If folks are interested in learning about how we do community organizing, I think I saw Vonia Quarles from Riverside, California, who was also on the chat. She does this type of work as well in Riverside, and more within the family dependency court as well. But if folks are interested, feel free to hit me up to learn more about what participatory defense is. I'll also put the website in the chat so folks could look it up, and my email as well.
Yeah, I was going to also say in regards to court watching, our call to action is for people to so the court in Durham is on the 5th floor. The address is 515, right? East Main Street. And so we want people every other week. There's 2 judges, Judge Walker and Judge Montgomery Blinn. We want y'all in these courtrooms to be able to watch what is going on. Also, we partner with the People's Alliance. And we actually have a meeting tonight at 7 p.m. And we welcome people in Durham to come out and to organize together to talk about what does community education look like? What does holding our elected officials accountable look like in Durham?
7 p.m. where? Or do you want to send that out
at
later?
At the People Solidarity Hub. At the People Solidarity Hub. You can look it up. It's 1803 Chapel Hill Road in Durham.
All right, everybody. We are getting close to the end of time. Again, I just really want to thank Dawn. You were an incredible moderator. I like a million bows, like a million gratitudes for holding this space. Emancipate and C in particular, who've been such an incredible partner in this work. Operation Stop CPS, Life After Release, Debug, Criminal Injustice Reform Network, Virginia Family Preservation Project, Civil Rights Court. Just, you know, the work doesn't get done without people. No organization, no one person, no individual carries any of this work alone. This work is people power, people resistance, and I just feel incredibly inspired today to hear all the ways people are fighting back, the way y'all are putting your bodies on the line to build safety. And I think, we've had a ton of people here today, and I hope that we all remember that when they are trying to keep Black bodies out, well, let's be super clear, they love to keep Black bodies in those courtrooms. When they're trying to keep the people resisting those systems out, it is not about protecting any other interest than the government. And it's our responsibility to remind each other about that. It's our responsibility to keep those doors open. And that's our responsibility to show up. We have actions available. We have links available. We will send those out to everyone who came today. Please do forward them. Please do follow all these groups on social media. Please do look at the resources. Please figure out new stuff on your own and let us know how to do better, because at the end of the day, none of us have all the answers. All of us only have the effort, and we love to be in community with everyone. So with incredible gratitude, I say goodbye.